Welcome back, you guys, to our series on the Awakening the Illuminate Heart interviews to the teachers. Today is our next interview. With us is Irene, but let's hear how she says her name properly. So tell us your name, please, Irene.
Hi, Gabriel. Thank you for having me here. Yes, my name is Irene Viglia Atton.
All right, cool. And where are you right now, Irene?
Right now, I'm in Italy. So I'm originally from here, was born in Italy, in the north part of Italy, northwest, close to Mont Blanc. But I'm resident in London, UK.
Okay, beautiful. I know that areas, both London and in Italy, beautiful places. Um, Tell us a little bit about your educational background, Irene.
Right. So I have a degree in international business with languages, which brought me to work for multinationals as a business development manager for a few years. So I've always had this very large interest in developing business and speaking languages. Through my travel, then I ended up doing what I'm doing today, which is coaching and helping people through their emotions and living in the heart.
Okay, beautiful. And so you told us about your career background, and so what you studied in university is economics, I assume.
Yes, it's business, so part of it is economic as well, but there was much more. So law, international trades, and many other parts, accounting.
All right. So you studied in Italy. You did your first degree in Italy, and then your master's
No,
abroad,
I
or
studied my degree in London
okay, all right,
at
which
Westminster University.
Westminster University. Okay,
Mhm.
beautiful. And my next question then for you would be, how did you meet Drunvalo, and how did you go to the teacher training? How did that all happen?
Well, this is a very interesting part because back in 2009, when I transitioned out of the business world, I have to say I was highly guided by what I always call that feeling that comes from the chest that either pulls you or pushes you. And I I had to literally give up my business work because I felt it was clashing a bit with my integrity and the way things were being done at that time in big organization was a bit strong towards people. I didn't feel that human rights were very respected at the time, not with me directly, because I had very good experiences, but with all my colleagues. So something literally pushed me. And I remember saying to my bosses, look, I really have to leave you guys, even if I knew at that point I was progressing with my career, but I felt something was moving me away. I had to do something more human. And I moved to Peru. I moved to the mountains of Peru, to the Andes, because I wanted to be closer to nature and I wanted to be closer to that culture. And over there, then I discover more the living in the heart, the tradition of living in the heart from the indigenous people over there. Very simple people, very simple life that really appreciates and have gratitude from the heart. I just didn't know all those concepts at the time. I was just living it and feeling good with it.
So you went
And what?
traveling and
Yeah,
exploring.
I went traveling, but with a specific purpose of being in Peru. And was there in October 2009. I stayed in a specific place in the Sacred Valley. And the lady owning the place told me, you know, Irena, there is a very interesting workshop that is going to take place here starting tomorrow. And I wonder if you're interested in attending. And I said, but what is it all about? And she said, it's called The Flower of Life. So it was the original workshop to learn to activate the body of light, the Merkaba, through the 17 breaths, as it's explained in Drunvalo's book. And at the time, you know, I didn't know very much what was going on, but something inside of me said, go. So I went. And and I did these, I don't remember if 3 or 4 intensive days where we activated our body of light and That was a very important experience for me because at that time, um, I had a very strong connection with what we could call probably my star of origin. I don't know, but it felt that really connected me
Which one was
back.
that?
I cannot tell you. I just know that it was a very distant land, made of light. There was absolutely no physicality in it, and my first reaction, Gabriele, at the time was, I want to come back here now. And this, and I'm going to say this because this is one of the biggest lessons that all of us are learning here, is wanting to run away from the physical body to go back home. But where is home? So that was really the beginning of my journey of discovering that at some point I will go back home. I will, of course. But first of all, I needed to learn very well the meaning of staying grounded and happy in the here and now on the planet, and to master my emotions and not to run away from it. That's a big lesson, right? So that was the beginning of my journey with the flower of life and Drunvalo. And then my life really changed from there. I continued practicing the meditation for 2 years, as you know probably, the old way of keeping the Merkaba. And for it to be permanent, we had to practice 2 years every day to have a permanent adult Merkaba that is steady. That's it. So I continued. And at some point, it was 2010, I started uh, feeling, feeling and dreaming. Dreams are very important for me, night dreams, of getting back in touch with my facilitator for the Flower of Life at the time. He kept popping in my mind, he kept popping in my dreams, and there was this importance of the heart, the heart, the heart. I'm like, what is going on here? So I reconnected, and I said, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I have to ask you what is going on, because something is going on. And I remember at the time, he told me, you know, Drunvalo is thinking of bringing the work to the next level. He's now going to train people to teach living in the heart. And he said, are you interested in this project? And I said, well, I guess so, but I'm not a teacher. At the time, I was not teaching in this way. I was doing coaching, but not teaching to groups yet. But he said, you know, Irene, if I were you, I would really consider this, see how it goes. So I embraced it and I allowed it, and I moved forward until here comes in 2011, July 2011 is when Drunvalo ran the first training, at the time called Living in the Heart, because we didn't have a name. We didn't have a name for what was going to be the workshop that was going to be taught in the world. Mm-hmm. So we went in, I remember we were around 100 people, more or less. So that was July 2011. We gathered in Sedona at the Sedona Creative Center. And Drunvalo at the time, I remember, bless him, he didn't really have a complete script of what we were going to do. He said, you know, the work is unfolding as we are moving. And it was very exciting. We spent something like 11 days, I think, together. And of course, it was a very intense process to pass all the tests, because there's many tests in training to do this work. And finally, we came to the completion of the training, and I was blessed enough to be one of the teachers that could go out. In the beginning, we were 50 around the planet. And then after a few months, I began teaching in London and in Italy, and I never stopped since then.
Nice. So let me see if I understand properly. Drunvalo, after the Flower of Life, was really making an effort to go into an organic, natural manifestation of the Merkaba. And when he found it on his own, and then needed to find a way to teach it and learn how to teach it. And that's why you guys were invited during this 11 days workshop that didn't really have a name yet, and then eventually was called Earth, Sky, Heart, and then after that became the Awakening the Illumined Heart, correct?
Illuminated Heart. That's correct. So before our training, he was already teaching the Earth, Sky, and Heart.
Okay.
Or Earth, sorry. And then we moved. After our training is when the work was then called Awakening the Illuminated Heart. But from this moment on, the activation of the Merkaba was done organically from what we know is called the tiny space within the heart.
Okay.
Not anymore the 17 breaths that we know from the books. So that was the big change.
Right? Not synthetic anymore, more organic, natural.
Yeah, organic, because I'm sure you know, and everything that comes from the heart, that originates from the heart, that is being manifested from the heart, is natural. It's organic. It's the truth, versus trying to force it from another space of ego, perhaps, that wants to manifest something. So the Merkaba that now we activate in the workshops is an organic one. It's in line with nature. It's from the heart, and it's not very complex, the way of activating it right now, which feels good as well.
Nice. So my question for you would be, what is your personal experience? I think there is extreme value in hearing this question from all the teachers. And so the question is relating first to the Merkaba and also the tiny space of the heart, so the space of creation. So what are your personal experiences of Merkaba and the tiny space of the heart?
So if you don't mind, I'm going to start from the tiny space of the heart.
Sure.
Because as you know, you've experienced it yourself when you took the Awakening the Illuminated Heart. The first step is the heart, and then the heart and the brain are connected. So we move into a space of creation mode, and then the Merkaba is activated. That's why I always want to go back to the heart. For me, living in the heart and the tiny space of the heart is the ultimate place where I want to be, and not just in meditation. We were chatting before, and I was telling you that this for me is not just a workshop, is not just a meditation that I do in the morning and then that's it. But for me, the living in the heart and the experience of the space within the heart is a way of living. So how much are we capable of maintaining throughout the day that space, that living from here, that being able to manifest from here? And it's not always that simple, because life challenges us, right? So emotions come and go, and they might take us out of the space of the heart. And that's why then we become masters of our emotions. It's very important for me to fully live from the heart, to be able to understand that emotions are a great way to then move back to the heart. Because if we keep suppressing anger or fear, ultimately we're never going to be able to embrace fully the peaceful heart, right? So for me, the space within the heart is the ultimate space where my soul resides, and where I can be one with an energy that some people want to call God. Not everybody is along that line. So I always say, call it God, call it universe, call it the creator, call it that source, that force, that is that the one source that has created everything in the beginning, as described in Genesis. So first of all, for me, is the experience of the space within the heart is a space of ultimate peace with the self. And it's a big one.
How would you sensorily, in terms of sensory perception, describe going in there?
Well, for me, when I'm in there, and I'm in meditation, so I can tell you from a meditation perspective,
Perspective, yes.
I feel my body becomes a body vibrating with light and expansion. So there is an expansion. Some people might have read it from the Upanishad. It explains in the Upanishads that the space within the heart contains everything. So you might have this experience of expansiveness. Suddenly, I had feelings many times that when in there, I become everything and nothing at the same time. Of course, I don't want to be in that space when I'm walking around in the street because I don't want to disappear. So the other part of living in the heart is I'm noticing that when I maintain this way of living throughout the day, I'm grounded. So I feel that groundedness on earth. I always tend to see the goodness and the positive in every situation, even in the most difficult ones. So I'm really feeling that when I fully embrace that space of me, then everything is perfect. There is no right or wrong. It is, right? And it's difficult, this concept, sometimes to feel. Unless you really feel it, you cannot phrase it and understand it. So you really have to come to a space of understanding through the feeling, through the embodying this space. So living in the heart, very important in meditation, expansion, body of light, but also the day by day. How do I relate to other people? Because then that puts you in a position of how do I choose to relate to my neighbor? How do I choose to relate to my husband? How do I choose to relate to my parents, to my friends, to my teacher, to my student? Do I do it from a space of compassion? Because that's what the heart teaches me. Or do I do it from a space of judgment and duality? Then we are already in a more complicated space.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that that leads me to the next question, which is related to the three variables. So let's call them variables. I have also
Mhm.
in previous interviews, I used the metaphor of pillars, where people want to achieve happiness and they think to achieve it they need these three things in their life, and that's health,
Ah,
money, and relationships, good relation. When all these three things are in place, they're all happy, everything is fine. So in your opinion, what and that's when people actually start approaching higher consciousness questions like, why am I here, who am I, what am I doing here, what's the purpose of my life, where am I going, is there more than just relationships, money, and well-being. And so that's when they also start approaching a spiritual path. But the question here is, how did you, for yourself or your students, use the Merkaba or the tiny space of the heart to take care of these three variables, these three pillars?
right. This is a very interesting question, Gabrielle, and I really believe that um, there's nothing wrong with human being to say, I want to be healthy, I want to be successful,
Heck yeah.
I want to be happy. There's nothing wrong. Why not?
Yeah.
No, my question is why not?
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that the big question mark and the big problem here is why do we even go into a space of we don't deserve it eventually? Because that's the real problem.
Well, it's one of the problems. A lot of people just don't know how to make money or have a
Right?
really hard
No,
time taking care of their
I know.
shoulder or
Exactly, exactly.
whatever.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. But when it comes to I want to be successful, I want to be healthy, I want to be happy, why not? So
Absolutely.
now my perception here, my experience in life and my experience with my students, well, I always start from the self because I've always had to experience through my own body before going out and teaching others. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in my own integrity here. But my own experience has always been that if I am truly one with that space within the self, that inner voice, that He is the creator, that He is the, call it the guidance inside, that is in our heart. If I am truly there, I notice that every single step of my life is being guided. So it feels like for me, when I truly embrace that part of myself, automatically I'm healthy. Automatically, I I am being guided to the right students, to the right classes, to the right job, to the right relationship. It's not even that I have to fight for it. It's a matter of, am I able to listen to that guidance inside? And of course, don't get me wrong, doing the necessary work to clear up all the emotions and the false ideas around the stories that we carry. Have to take care of the shoulder, have to be loyal to my father, all these stories, they will always be there. So we have to be able to clean it up. But then ultimately, moving to this center and listening. And I've really noticed in my experience in life and with my students that as we do that, automatically we're being guided.
Can you give
And
us an example, clear example, like when you were automatically guided?
yeah, I mean, look, even when I moved away from business and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, that's very interesting. These always bring it up in my classes. I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing, but something bigger than me started moving me from inside. And it's one of those feelings that you cannot not listen to because it pushes you. You try to resist it, but it pushes you. And when you start feeling it, it's actually expansive and fun. So you want to go with it. And I remember stepping away from the security of a business job to go into the Andes in Peru to do what? Because I didn't know what I was gonna be doing up there. And so I followed that voice that at the time I didn't know it was my heart. It took me a moment to understand that that was my heart speaking. So that was actually a way for me to manifest, not even being conscious. And that guided me to much happiness because then I moved into this work. Then I moved into doing the work of Drunvalo, doing the work of teaching the heart, doing the work of helping people mastering emotions. So that led me to my own happiness as far as I stay true to that voice, right? But I've seen students in my classes going, oh, it's time to learn to manifest from the heart. Good. So what do you want to manifest? I always say, try. Bring something into your heart that it's so dear to you that you want to see manifesting in your life and see what happens. So I had students saying, during my creation process, I asked for the partner, for my soulmate, for my relationship. And after a month, they would contact me saying, I found it. I found her. I manifested the job of my life. So I've seen it. But the most important thing is to stay in humility. This is not a process of forcing, oh, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do this. No, no. It's a process of sitting and feeling how I'm really feeling about it. So it's a very different experience than probably what our societies have taught us. We were brought up in the same country in Italy, so we know that A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's how you go to get to what you want.
Right.
So nobody really teaches you in schools or wherever we go. It's difficult for families sometimes to teach you to follow your heart. They would probably tell you, no, 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 you need to apply reason to life. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Or
And
do
don't get
what
me wrong.
society expects, like get married at
Right,
a certain time,
right, right,
study, go to university, do the job, and so
right.
on and so on.
And Gabriella, don't get me wrong. For me, it's extremely important to also apply the reason because we don't
Absolutely.
want to become crazy and go and do some crazy stuff out there without, also think about it. But it's a matter of what is my true dream?
Right.
And I'm talking about dreaming, is the hard dreams, right? So what is my true dream? What is my true call? What is my true voice?
I would say also a big process in there is recognizing the voice of the heart recognizing the
Absolutely.
message, because not always, I mean, like a lot of people may hear that voice and they're like, hell no, I'm not leaving
No,
my comfort
exactly,
zone, my job.
exactly,
Oh my God, I have to go where? To the
exactly,
Andes?
exactly, exactly. But at the same time, we only ever take the steps we need to take when we are ready.
Right.
So I believe that the most important thing is that when oh my God, fear, anxiety, whatever comes up, the key here is to become masters of our own emotions. So when all of that is calm, when we've cleaned the fear, when we clear the anxiety that we all suffered in life, because nobody is perfect here, we learn through emotional shifts, right? Then ultimately, when we move into that space of inner silence, that's when we can really hear. It takes a little time, of course. I'm not saying, well, that's going to be done in one day, but it works.
It's a muscle.
Yes, it's a muscle.
You
It's a
learn.
muscle that in the beginning some people might wanna master through meditation, because the meditation is giving you the discipline to say, okay, it's like learning riding a bicycle, right? Or driving a car. You're driving, and initially you have to think, okay, I have to turn left, I have to turn right, I have to do this, I have to open the door and this. So you have to think about the way you drive until one day something clicks inside, right? We don't even think about how to drive anymore,
Yeah,
because the subconscious is doing it automatically, right? So it's like moving from, I'm choosing this way of living where I'm really truthful to my heart, truthful to myself, to that voice inside. Um, I'm moving through meditation, and then I'm moving into living it fully every minute of my day as much as I can, you know?
right. Thank you for that. It's very profound, and it really touches a lot of points that people have felt or heard or read, but it's there's, in my opinion, and forgive me, I take a little bit of time to share it with you. The experience of that voice or the experience of the heart needs to be, first of all, recognized and then understood. And the process of understanding it, I mean, the recognition is probably the toughest part. You're half the way. And then the next step is contemplating it and articulating it.
Right.
Because if you don't articulate what your heart is telling you, what the message from inside is,
It's difficult, yeah.
the mind cannot really relate to it.
Right, right. And that's the other thing, right? So, one of the things that I always say in my classes is it always takes a little bit of time for our mind to relax and trust.
Mm.
So, we must explain to the mind what we are doing here. We cannot just say, oh, let's jump into the heart and go, well, hello, we're coming from thousands of years of this part of ourselves leading, right? And suddenly we are telling ourselves, okay, let's switch and try and lead from the heart. It's a big jolt for the body, it's a big shock, right? It's a big shock for the system, and the mind needs to be relaxed in this process, needs to be explained as well what we are doing.
You know, one I relate very much to what you're saying, and I feel like the future of this work and this human development element that is so still quite esoteric is really the coherence between the two. A space where
Absolutely.
the mind is really tuned to, it's not just driving on its own, but it's really, there's no separation anymore between the two. One is giving input, and the other one is, understanding and then processing it and then sharing back information. It's a constant flow. For some
Absolutely.
reason we got lost in the middle, and they're, like the shoulders are blocking, or the information
Right.
gets stuck here somewhere. But little by little we're getting to a unison of flow. And I've noticed it in my years of yoga. I've been a regular meditator for some 20 years now, and the more the mind is silent, the sharper it becomes, and the more it can listen and recognize the processes of the heart.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience. I'm going to jump to the psychic side of things now. And the question is very much about, have you noticed a spike or an increase or an improvement on your precognition, telepathy, call it whatever we want, extrasensory perceptions. In the words of Rupert Sheldrake, I would say biomorphic field dynamics.
Okay.
Since the time you awakened your body of light or your Merkaba, or the time you went into your tiny space of the heart.
Right. It's interesting because I haven't talked much about the Merkaba, but I always go back to the heart simply because the heart for me comes first, and then the activation of the Merkaba follows. Since we activate the Merkaba from that space. I always see the Merkaba as this great expansion or extension of the tiny space of the heart. This body of light is this huge expansion of the heart. How has it expanded? Okay, this is interesting because you see, I am already being born with some gifts. Not that I normally speak much about it, but I've always been able to see beyond the physical body. At times this is a good thing, at times it's very difficult. So let's say that my senses have always been very enhanced in general in life. But I feel that with the work I've been doing, what I've been able to do is to ground more my gifts into the body. The more I ground myself into the body, the more I can see that the Merkaba and the heart are helping me expanding, growing my perceptions and my vision, or my hearing, my feeling. Everything has become more enhanced. But I see sometimes people struggle with this because the difficulty is to stay grounded. So definitely the work that we've been doing with the heart and the Merkaba have enhanced. They enhance definitely the perception. By doing the work more and more and more, you become more of a visionary. You become more of a person sensing, feeling, perceiving things at many levels. But then are we able to stay grounded? So I always come back to, we must stay grounded, because the more grounded we stay, the more we develop this part of ourselves, the more also we become more perceptive and more intuitive. Some people might want to say more intuitive in all of this, because intuition can be through the seeing, through the sensing, through the feeling. So it definitely enhances it. But I always say it's important in this process to stay grounded. Okay. And in the body.
Appreciate your answer. Yes. So, in light of what we just said, can you describe your experience of multidimensionality or perceiving other dimensions? Or I personally don't know how. I don't. A lot of people speak about 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, so on and so forth. I don't know that I have experienced that. I don't see the difference, and I assume a lot of other people's individuals don't know the difference between one dimension or the other, or how to experience it. Maybe you can address that.
Well, this is another very good question, right? Because there's many people who wonder at the moment about all these dimensions. There's some people, in fact, that speak, oh, we're still in third dimension. Some people that say we're in four. Some people that already speak, we're in the fifth dimension already. I'm like, okay. And I come back, we are in the present moment.
Thank you. I'm like, okay, how the heck can you define where you are, and I mean, based on what?
No, but look, and I don't, you see, it's interesting because maybe here you ask this question to the wrong person, because someone like Drunvalo would easily take you to the 13th dimension and back, and even higher dimensions. And it's great that there's people who can explain that. Now, my path in this life and my own experience is the importance of living the present moment. Because again, my own experience as a facilitator for this work is that going to search for different dimensions is a way of running again from the body for some people who don't know how to stay present, from what I'm seeing. So when I try to experience different dimensions from the heart, because in the heart you can ask yourself that question. My own experience is that the higher the dimension goes, the higher the frequency is, and the more ethereal the body becomes. So it's a bit like what I told you in the beginning when I told you I had that experience. I was an out of body experience of going back home, but going back to this star that I didn't even want to investigate what star. It didn't really matter. But my whole body was light, was not anymore a physical body. So I wonder which dimension was I in there, apart from being somewhere else, right? So for me, the different dimensions as I perceived and in my own experience in the heart is simply a rising up to a different frequency and my own body becoming lighter and lighter and lighter until it turns into ether, right? Yeah,
Okay,
this is my own
can
experience.
I can definitely relate to what you're saying, and in my experience, limited to meditation, moving around, being in the present moment, I've never experienced any. I mean, like I could see shadows or things that move, or sometimes I see dots of light that pop out of nowhere. But more than that, I don't have a lot of experiences with open eyes. But when I meditate, I can definitely relate to what you're saying. There is a lightening of my awareness, and sometimes the sensory perceptions expand beyond, I would say, this phenomenal world, as in where this natural world, with this physical world, and I can see forms of light that take an anthropomorphic shape, or and there's no volition. That's the thing. I don't will to be there, or I don't will to see it. It just pops in front of my eyes,
Right,
and I
right.
cannot explain that. I don't know how it happens, but it has. And I know I'm not crazy. I'm not on drugs, and I don't do any of those things. And so my effort right now is really to understand in the light of someone else's experience, which is what it's been happening
We're doing, yeah, yeah.
forever. Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that. It makes a lot more sense. So, in your opinion, is basically a phenomenon of transcendent and etherification, if you want, shifting from physical to energetic, where there's less limited. I mean, perception is not as limited by this physiology, which is
Right,
capable of perceiving this much of the spectrum of light, where the spectrum of light is
right,
this big. And so that makes a
right.
lot of sense.
You know, and also right now, if you ask me which dimension you think we're in, I really believe we are experiencing a very physical life right now, probably now more than ever.
Right.
With everything that's going on in the planet, we are really being brought down to the body to experience exactly all the emotions that we probably never faced before.
Right.
So, is this 3D, 4D, 5D? I'm not sure.
Right.
You know, I really do not know. All I know is that the present moment to the point that emotions can become very physical.
Mm-hmm.
For many people, they are very physical right now.
You want to clarify that, as in like?
Well, you see, we are in a point at a point on the planet where, well, you know, with all the lockdown situations, where with stopping, the past year has been a year of stop for the collective. Some of us have taken it as a great moment to break from out, 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 so and going more and more in. Some others who've been always very active out, out, out to escape the self. This has turned into a hell of a year.
Literally.
And literally, and nothing wrong as far as you know how to deal with yourself.
Right.
But when you don't know how to deal with your own monsters, if we can call it like that, your own inner stories that you've never looked at before, this has turned into a year where many people turn those repressed emotion into depression, perhaps, or a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Now more than ever, there's people going to see psychiatrists and psychologists because there is an issue now. And my goodness, I had to face myself like never before now. Everything that I've never seen from landing into my mother's womb to today, I'm at home by myself. I have to see it. So I feel that now more than ever, the emotions are becoming so physical to a point that people start feeling it physically,
Yeah. There's no
right?
hiding from it. Yeah.
No, there's no hiding.
Yeah.
So, is this a third dimension, a fourth, a fifth? I don't know. There is definitely a shift going on in the planet. That is for sure.
Right.
That's for
And
sure. A huge one.
yeah. And so that's my next. That will be our probably final question, since you have 10 minutes, and then you need to go, right?
Yeah.
What is your opinion of what's going on in the planet? Where are we going? And what is this process of ascension that everybody's talking about? And to give you the background, as I asked to the other teachers, 2000 was the year of the end of the biblical world. 1000, no more thousand, and then the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012.
Well,
Nothing happened except for something happened in 2012, but we're not going to go that route. And then 2020 was the actual end of the world, where everything stopped, as you said.
yeah.
And so where are we going now? What do you think is the direction, and what is this phenomena of evolution or
Right.
ascension?
Okay. So it's funny because in this past year, I've been teaching a class called Building a New World. Is literally one of the things I've been feeling here is that this moment of pause or stop or lockdown, everybody can address it the way they feel they need to call it, has been a time of maybe the way the old world has been until now has completely worked out good for the planet. We'll start from Earth. We polluted the planet, we abused the planet, we exploited the planet, we took out of the planet so many things for our own use. So suddenly the world is stopping and there is less pollution. The ozone layer is healing. Everything is healing. You see, in London, when I was in London, there were deers and animals coming into the city as
Foxes
if we
and
were
yeah,
in a, right? Amazing.
yeah.
So, luckily enough, I was able to see the positive in this. And I always felt that was a big stop to restart. And the restart didn't mean to restart from step one, but to a new octave, if you want to call it. So maybe this is as we were talking before, maybe this is a step into a new dimension for people who speak in these terms, perhaps. So for me, there is definitely a big evolution going on. Many people are ready for the challenge. They are taking it, they are moving forward. As we can see, unfortunately, many are departing, right? And many souls are choosing to go. Is it a coincidence or not? We cannot say, but we see many people. I see many people close by here, many friends that are going, and in no time. And so there is definitely an evolution. It's almost like the planet feels it's moving to a new level. We are moving into a new world where there is definitely much more awareness. I don't know if you have noticed, but people with all this lockdown have become more aware of taking care of their own garden. They started cultivating herbs and vegetables in their own gardens like they never done before. Perhaps they took in a pet. They never had a pet because they were going to the office all the time. Now everybody has cats and dogs because they needed to give love to something else and receive love from an animal. So there is definitely a big evolution happening here. Ascension, for me, begins from inside. You know how everybody might think that ascension is okay, now we're going to take off and go somewhere else. For me, the first step of ascension, as I always teach, is first step of ascension is a descending. It's a descending into here. When I'm really into the center of myself, which is my origin, which is my heart, then I'm able to see the next steps for moving up at a soul level. I'm moving forward, I'm moving up. So we definitely are at a point where more and more people are being asked to go inside. And so ascension for me starts from here. So the first step of ascension is descending into the body to then ascend into a greater life, right? And for me, the planet is doing it, even if there is a lot of chaos going on. But for those who are able to calm down the emotion and look beyond, there's going to be something much better waiting for us in the middle of all this chaos. So let's stay positive and don't give up. For those who think it's very bad what's happening, we've got to stay positive.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so tell us where we can find you. What's your website, your email address, and what's on your agenda as far as ATIH and any other training that you're offering.
So my email, my web is www.ireneviglia.com. So my name and first part of the surname. Mm-hmm. You can reach me at irene@ireneviglia.com is my email address. And in my agenda, more or less, I'm teaching every month an Awakening the Illuminated Heart, that at the moment they're all online. I hope one day we're going to be able to, to go back to in person. I'm sure we will. But for now, we are still online. So the workshop is run throughout 4 days. So it's normally Thursday to Sunday or Friday to Monday. And then, of course, I have many other interesting programs running about dreaming. So working with the night dreams and learning to transform the cells through transforming the subconscious with the dreams. And then my classes of imagery that really help mastering the emotions so that we can be fully in the heart. Then I have some very interesting programs on heart leadership, which is my own creation, where I'm really bringing people to become leaders from the heart by, of course, looking inside and transforming whatever inner form is impeding us to become leaders from the heart. I've got a lot going on.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. This is our interview with Irene. The series on ATIH continues. I will see you in the next interview, but in the meantime, don't forget, please smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, and see you in the next interview. Take care for now. Bye-bye.